All right, Luis, and the rest of the gang. Let's talk about this important act that's going to protect us and consumers. So let's look at any act should have a regulator. This act in particular has the regulator. It's called CFPB. CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This guys, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, oversees, regulates many of these acts in our business of loan origination. This law in particular, under Regulation V, as in very good credit to remember, V as in Victor, victory, is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which was enacted in 1970, nicknamed FCRA. So, CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, oversees Regulation V, which enacted the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1970. All right, so what this act is all about? It's about how we get reported, or how credit bureaus report us to creditors, employment, and even insurances. So let's talk about how this came about. Well, in the 70s, back in the 70s, we were all about how we get reported, not really about identity theft. Nobody was worried about that stuff. But later on we did. And more laws, regulations, legislations, same thing, came about. So let's talk about this Fair Credit Reporting Act that falls under Regulation V and is regulated by CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So let's define what's a creditor. A creditor is someone that extends credit. Extends meaning loaning money to the consumer. But it's considered a creditor if this guy is going to get, or this agency, or this bank, or this person is going to be, if that credit, that loan is subject to finance charges over 4 or more installments. That's when this law, this act, this regulation comes and play part of it. The Fair Credit Reporting Act. So, if you approve, you're good to go. Now, if you get denied, that's when we got issues. That's when we got to look closely to this regulation. The Fair Credit Reporting Act. And now, let's keep in mind, credit reporting application, applying for an identity theft, they're all on the same umbrella, credit, but they play different parts. So let's talk about this one in particular. So when you apply for credit, on the application, you're just applying for it. You're not getting denied yet. You're just applying. That's equal. Equal credit opportunity. So that's equal. Equal Credit Opportunity Act. You're applying. All right, so once you apply, now you're in the process. So you apply for credit, you pass a COA stage, now you apply for credit. And boom, you get denied. So you apply for this to this creditor who got access to your credit report from the credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and what's the other one? Expedient. So these bureaus, these credit bureaus, are reporting your credit to these creditors, who you gotta pay a finance charge in 4 or more installments. So, because you got denied, now you got rights. Fair. That's why it's called Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1970, FCRA, known as FCRA. So what are those rights? What are the consumer rights? As soon as you get denied, you got a right to know why. So this creditor is going to send you what is called an adverse action notice. And on this notice, it's going to tell you why you got denied. And they give you several reasons why. And I'm sure some of us, or most of us, have gotten these letters, especially when you're applying for credit cards. You know? You get this letter saying, in compliance with, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, you are advised that your recent application for an extension of credit has been declined. The decision to deny the application was based on the following reasons. Remember that? Delinquent credit obligations, temporary employment, insufficient stability of income, a stable monthly income insufficient to make a monthly mortgage payment. So when you apply for credit, insurance, or employment, you're going to get this letter if you get denied. So it's not just for credit, okay? Insurance and employment. So when they say extend a credit, what it really means is loan you the money. So you get denied, you get this adverse action notice. It's called adverse action notice. Okay? So that's your first right. So you went through a process, deny it, you get the adverse action letter. You have to get this letter because it's your right to know why. But guess what? You also got the right to get the credit report. In other words, the report that these credit bureaus are sending to these creditors, these banks, this agency person is going to loan you the money in 4 or more installments that has a finance charge. Remember that. So you get your hands on your credit report for free from this agency, bank, credit card that deny your credit loan. You look at this credit report and you say, wait a minute, what's my credit score? Two different things. Some people might argue, oh, they don't give you a credit score. For test purposes and test purposes only, forget about what's going on in the world, one of your rights is that you can get your credit score for free. And we're going to look into what's a credit report and credit score. I mean, more in depth. But another right is, besides your letter, your action, your adverse action notice, your credit report, your credit score is, guess what? Once you look at it, you got the right to go ahead and dispute any inconsistencies, any bad data that they sent, such as maybe your name was wrong, misspelled, your address was wrong. You know, you go ahead and look it up very in detail to see if they made any mistakes. And trust me, there are mistakes that you can't dispute. And then, lastly, you have another right, which is to stop these creditors, these agencies, from sending you junk mail. In other words, offers. So you got that right from stopping them by contacting these agencies, you know, TransUnion, Equifax, Expedient, and limit your right is to limit pre-screening offers. No, I don't want any offer. No. They have to include a number where you can get your name out. So they'll stop all that junk mail. All right. So let's look at what is a credit report. A credit report is simply a statement that has the information on your credit history or credit activities. You know, it shows a situation where how you paying these loans. Are you being late? Or you have personal information too, public information, the whole historical payments, and any inquiries that these creditors send to the credit. And if you give them permission, of course, the inquiry is going to show. And if you didn't, it's called identity theft, which is another law, another act that we're going to talk about. So, in a nutshell, credit report is nothing but the history on how you perform, which contains your personal information, public records, account history, such as mortgage, installments, revolving payments. And what's revolving payments? It's something that it's like a credit card. You pay, you use it again, pay, use it again. It doesn't have an end. Some loans are called open-ended loans, such as cars. You open, you say you buy a car and you go, okay, I want to go 48 months. You got your date of when you open the account, and then you got an end date when you pay the account, pay the car off. They give you a date. You're going to pay the car off on this date. So it's a kind of credit. It's a kind of loan that you don't go back and take money out. Nothing. I mean, it's a car payment, right? It's called open-ended. The other one is called revolving because it doesn't have an end, such as credit cards. All right, so that's what credit report is. It's nothing but a history of your credit activities, loan activities, credit activities, loan activities, payment activities, installment payments. It also has public report, has your credit, have your personal information to include public records. What are we looking at public records? Maybe criminal history. Remember, when you apply for an employment, that's what they're looking for, which is falls under this law too, Fair Credit Reporting Act. When you apply for insurance, it falls under this law too. Now, credit score is different. What credit score means is or what the credit score tells the creditor or that person, that agency you're applying for a loan, is the ability or the likelihood that you are going to repay that loan on time. That's what the credit score is. It tells the creditor, the bank, the likelihood that you're going to make those payments on time for that loan. Not to get it confused. And some factors that play on it is bill payment history. Where that come from? The credit report. So it compiles your credit history, your how you pay, how many times you've been late, how many loans you have open. You got the whole bunch of loans, the whole 15 credit cards, bought 4 cars. So, you're living above your means. They study that stuff and they give you a credit score on it. Are you going to be able to pay on time? You got all these accounts open. Maybe not. And then again, the length of those accounts. Open-ended, revolving credit, so forth. And then, of course, the ability, say you got a credit card, it's $10,000. It's revolving, you can use it. It counts against you. The rule of thumb is, if you're paying 35%, if you add 35% from the limit, they look at it in a positive way. And if you got less than 10 payments, they don't count. Okay, so you got less than 10 payments, they don't count. They have few exceptions to the rule of the 10 payments. And we can get into those exceptions, or we can look it up for ourselves, for our own knowledge, which is good. I should have maybe come back with that information. Another thing we can look into is how the consumer, us, reporting the consumer reporting agency obligations. One of the obligations they have is, and it came out recently, in May 2008, Congress passed the Economic Growth Regulatory Relief of Consumers Protection Act that falls under the FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. And what this is in 2008, that's pretty recently, it came out with reporting negative information, such as bankruptcies, late payments. In other words, any negative information that is reported to your credit. How long does it stay negative information? 7 years. So they're not supposed to show that stuff. If 7 years old, you didn't make payments for freaking six months, but 7 years passed, they're not supposed to show that anymore since May 2018. Pretty recent. Now, bankruptcies are different. They stay in your credit for 10 years. So after 10 years, they're not supposed to see it. Who's they? The creditors, the banks. You apply for a loan in this bank, they cannot pass 10 years for bankruptcies. So bankrupt, 10 years, negative information, 7. So if it's recent than 7 years, yes, they're going to see it. So that's what Fair Credit Reporting Act is.